So I'm gonna be real with you. I never thought this channel would start becoming a gear review channel, but after this recent purchase that I just made of this here drone, I thought I'd let you know while I unbox this, and afterwards we'll go and test it, why I chose to purchase this particular drone over the drones that I actually wanted to purchase. And if this is a TLDR moment for you and you can't be bothered watching the rest of this video, although I would recommend that you do, no, I did not buy this drone because it's better than the ones I wanted to buy, which I'll explain in a second, but because I kinda had to be honest. So, with that being said, let's get this thing open. So, this way. It's the other way around. Oh yeah. That's right, I went ahead and purchased the DJI Mini 2 drone. Say mashallah. So before I tell you why I purchased this and not something like the Mavic 2 Pro, the Mavic Air 2 that I actually wanted and have used before in previous videos, let's get this thing open, talk about it a little bit. I'll tell you why I bought it, and then let's go out and test it out and see if it's actually worth the money that I spent on this. Anything in this box? Oh! ND filters for the drone, which we might talk about and review in a separate video. Okay, liking this so far. DJI hitting us with a really nice little drone carry case here, always comes in very useful. And there, new plastic drone smell always hits the spot. Okay, so first things first, in here we have the infamous large controller. And by the way, wait till you see this, right? Wait till you see how small this drone is compared to this controller. That's the controller in there. And here we have accessories box. We'll check that out in a second. Probably some instructions in there. And then, ready for this? The drone itself. Okay, and here we are, DJI second generation controller, shall we say. And if you look at this, I mean, I'm gonna just show you top down view here, right? The remote control is actually like bigger than the drone itself. Let me show you this angle over here. It's tiny. Now I got the Fly More combo, so I'm guessing in here I'm going to have my other 2 extra batteries which I got for the drone. Here we are, 2 extra batteries with a very convenient battery charger as well, and you can charge the batteries in here, I think via USB-C if I'm not mistaken, which is very, very handy. Opens from here, and then okay, a little kind of propeller leg holder thing, seat belt if you will, to keep things in place. And look at this thing, guys, this thing is absolutely totsy, man. Alright, so let's actually talk about why I went ahead and purchased this tiny little sub 250 gram drone. I think actually it says here 249 grams drone versus something much better like the Mavic 2 Pro, the Mavic Air 2 for example. And believe it or not, it's not because I am stingy and broke and didn't want to spend much money on a drone. It actually has to do a lot with the fact that the new 2021 UK laws kind of forced me to rethink my entire drone purchasing decision. What's happened is that in 2021 the CAA has now really scrapped a lot of their previous hobbyist versus commercial flyers, where before you had to get a separate license which is quite expensive to fly commercially, and now they base their your ability to fly and the laws based on the risk to the public, and also importantly based on the weight of your drone. Now I don't want to go into too much detail, there'll be separate videos out there that explain the rules very easily, but very simply speaking, there is a category I believe called the open category, if I'm not mistaken, that basically means that from now on there is within that category 3 subcategories, A1, 2 and 3. I think A1 is flying over people, A2 is flying close to people, and A3 is flying far away from people, away out in the open country, right? And depending on how heavy your drone is, you can only fly in certain places. Here in the UK, having a drone like this, the Mavic 2 Mini, actually flies under, get it, some of those laws, meaning you can fly in those otherwise restricted areas, you can fly above uninvolved people, you can fly a lot closer. Now for full details on that, you can visit the CAA website, which I'll link below, to learn more about the rules. And also the fact that I am planning to travel this summer, and for that, for me to get into some of the countries and pass customs without registering and going through a headache or having my drone seized at customs, having a drone under 250 grams comes in clutch. Oh, life story, man. Let's talk about the drone itself. Okay, so although I was a bit disappointed that I was not going to have the picture quality of that larger Hasselblad camera, the 1.8 sensor of the Mavic 2 Pro with the D-Log, etc. I'm actually quite intrigued and excited about what this little powerhouse can do. I watched quite a number of reviews about the Mini 2, and I haven't owned a Mini 1, so I'm not sure what that was like to fly, but a lot of people are saying that this little beast here, this little powerhouse packed under 250 grams at that, is actually pretty good. So what is in the Mini 2? The DJI Mini 2 packs a 4K camera at 30 frames per second max, and that is 100 megabits per second. That's a huge jump from the Mavic Mini 1, which means you're getting sharper, higher quality 4K image, okay? Now, something which I wish this had, which it doesn't have unfortunately, is a log profile. You are going to get a what you see is what you get standard out of the box picture profile. And from what I have seen, it's actually not that bad, and some YouTubers out there have managed to color grade it quite well. Let's see how we get on in a bit after I take this out for a bit of a spin. You also have a 12 megapixel sensor in here which shoots raw photos too, which is always welcomed, making this not really a toy anymore for beginners. Actually having the ability to shoot raw photos in the air and edit and post, and not just having JPEGs, is amazing, which means you can take it a lot further and create some incredible photos. I believe you can go up to 60 frames on this thing, but that is only at 1080p. What's also cool is that at 4K and 1080 you also have digital zoom as well, so if you don't want to get your drone too close to, let's say, a waterfall for example, you can punch in and get a bit more detail. Also on this drone we have up to an advertised 31 minutes of battery life, which is quite cool for a drone of this size. But I am expecting that when I go out and fly in the real world, I'm not going to get a full 31 minutes. I'm expecting something about 25 minutes maybe on a good day that's not super windy and not having me to punch this thing into sports mode and fly around like crazy. Something which this little beast does not have, unfortunately, is a wide range of obstacle sensors. There are a couple of sensors here on the bottom of the drone, but you do not have your side and top sensors are omnidirectional that the 2 Pro has, so you have to be quite careful with this drone. Something which I'm also going to test out are the quick shots in here. Now I believe it does not have the full intelligent flight modes that the bigger brother drones actually have here in this camera, but they do have these standard inbuilt quick shot modes like the drone, like the kind of helix and circular effects. So we're going to go see how they turn out as well. Alright, so enough waiting, let's go and actually fly this thing and see how it performs. Oh wait, actually, it says I have to charge the battery first before I can go. Well, I guess I'll have to fast forward this part of the video. Alright, first things first, of course, you connect the controller to the drone. My iPhone XS Max, as big as it was, actually fit in there quite snug. You launch the DJI Fly app, connect your aircraft, and get that little beast up in the air. Once in the air, the Mini 2 is fairly quiet, and from what I could see also was quite good against the wind on that day. Now what I'm doing here is not using manual but instead auto exposure. The reason being, I want to show you a true representation of what this thing can do straight out of the box on default. What I did do though was bump up the exposure compensation a bit. I felt it was a bit dark, and then tapped and held on the screen to lock that exposure so it wouldn't change mid-flight. And so get this thing up in the air, here we go, and now it's time to show you a few shots that I took with a before and after of completely default and auto from the drone versus a slight color grade which I applied over these clips. So here is a little compilation of these before and after clips, and as you can see, the drone is actually doing not bad even on its auto exposure mode of retaining the highlights. Of course, the shadows in the bottom half of the image are a bit darker in order for it to do that, but I was fairly impressed here. Of course, the shutter speed is cranked way high, you can see that in the movement of the birds, but I'm quite delighted on how this was able to grade in post using Premiere Pro. Now something which was quite scary which happened was my controller completely lost connection with the drone barely a few hundred meters away. I was there stuck floating above the water. I'm not sure what happened here, perhaps I had to update my firmware or recalibrate or something. Eventually it came back on, but yes, that was a very scary moment. Quite disappointing with the OcuSync 2.0, I have to say. Time for some quick shots now, and I started off with using the circular quick shot. I was in a bit of a tight space on the small beat, so I didn't do a big dramatic circular motion. You basically drag your finger over the subject, the DJI Mini 2 will lock onto that subject. You press the start button, 3, 2, 1, and now it's time, excuse my ridiculous, I want to be an Avenger pose, and the drone will circle, go around in a circle of your subject in the direction that you choose, and also at the height and or the altitude that you choose. Mistakenly here, my gimbal was at the wrong angle, but I hope that you get the point. Next up is the drone, which shoots right up in the air. I cranked it up to 50 meters this time. Once again, you tap and drag over your subject to lock them in. Hit that start button, and after a few seconds, the drone kicks in and launches up in the air. The good thing about these quick shots is that you can achieve pretty cinematic and pretty hard maneuvers to do on your own. You would have to be a very experienced drone pilot to pull off some of these maneuvers in the way that the drone does. Next up was the helix, which does a similar circular motion, except it actually starts to fly up and gradually reveals the landscape around you as well. This time round, I did not walk around to actually test to see if the DJI Mini 2 would keep me locked in, although in a separate test on a different day I did try to walk around during the helix, and the Mini 2 did lose track, so it is better done when your subject is still. And there was a little before and after with the auto exposure versus a little grade. Speaking of before versus after, here are those clips from that sequence at the start of this video, before and after a little color grade has been applied for your reference. Again, this was all on auto exposure using no ND filters whatsoever. Purely what you see is what came out of the drone, and as you'll see in this shot, you can tell it's on auto because the exposure does change here dramatically. Once the sky comes in, the lower half of the image gets much darker, and similarly here you can see the exposure changing as well, but it does a not bad job on auto in my opinion. Whew. So that was my review on the little DJI Mini 2 and why I chose it. Kind of because I had to, due to the new UK laws over the bigger brother Air 2 or the Mavic 2 Pro. But as you can see, dang it, this little thing has a power in it. And although I didn't get the full capabilities of that D-Cinelike or the D-Log that the 2 Pro gave me as a luxury, as you can see and hopefully liked and enjoyed and were impressed with, let me know in the comments if you think the footage from this clip was good. It turned out not bad, right? And on a good day, along with these ND filters, which you can pick up as well from different suppliers, and here the ones I'm using are actually ND plus circular polarizers inbuilt. That actually makes it much easier to ensure that you're dialing in at low ISO, not getting much noise, you're sticking with your 180 shutter rule, and hopefully keeping as much of the highlights you can as possible, meaning that you're not getting blown out highlights and you're not having to go crazy in editing afterwards. So that's my advice to you, is before you go out and buy a really expensive drone, consider number one, what your actual needs are, number two, how much you can afford, and number three, very importantly, if you're actually going to be able to legally fly your drone. Now, if I use the Mini 2, if I rinse it for all it's worth, if I use it on a couple of shoots, I'm happy with it. I might keep it as a backup drone, and if I find myself actually requiring the much higher quality that the 2 Pro provides, for example, I can easily rent it out for a day for a paid shoot, or I might invest in it in the future. But doing that also means I am going to have to go and take that extra test, pay an extra £100 or so for the A2C of C certificate of competence, I believe it's called, to be able to even fly it anywhere near something interesting that's not out on some abandoned farm away somewhere in the Scottish Highlands. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think below. Let me know if you have a Mini 2 already. Let me know if you're thinking of picking up a Mini 2, and also let me know what you think of these new UK drone laws. That's it from me this time. I hope to see you back in another video. Please go ahead, hit like and subscribe, bell, notifications, all that good stuff. I'm a brand new YouTuber here. I want to bring you more in-depth tutorials, video making tutorials, editing tutorials back there on the computer, gear reviews, helping you create content that's meaningful, giving you that insight, especially if you're a beginner, to get going on your film making journey. Until next time, have an awesome, what day is it today? Whatever day it is, have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. Salam.